Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by the Little Shaman Healing. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I want to talk to you about boundaries, specifically about the guilt that can come with establishing boundaries. We talk a lot about boundaries on the show, and that's because boundaries are very important to the healing process. Most people who become entangled with narcissists and in abusive relationships in general have very poor boundaries. Luckily, this is something that can be changed, and that's why we talk about it so much. You can learn to establish and uphold strong boundaries so that you don't fall victim to abusive relationships anymore. One of the reasons it can be hard to establish boundaries is guilt. Often, people who have not always had strong boundaries can feel guilty about trying to create them. They might feel that they're being selfish or that they're going to be perceived as uncaring. That's understandable. Many people who have poor boundaries are that way because they were raised in an invalidating or abusive environment where boundaries were punished, destroyed, or not even permitted. Because of this, we often find that a lot of the guilt people believe they feel when they're trying to establish boundaries is actually not guilt at all, but conditioning. They've been conditioned to believe that caring about themselves is wrong, that defending themselves is hurtful to others, and that protecting themselves is selfish. This could not be farther from the truth, but that kind of conditioning sticks with a person and can be difficult to break. It's by no means impossible, though. Just as a quick refresher, boundaries are the rules we create for ourselves regarding how we will accept being treated. They reflect our self-respect and how much we value ourselves. If we allow others to abuse us, we're not valuing ourselves enough, and we need to work on creating boundaries that reinforce and reflect our self-respect. People treat us how we allow them to treat us, and except in very extreme circumstances, nobody has any power over you that you did not give them. You can take that power back anytime you want. All you have to do is decide that you are not giving people the power to hurt you anymore. That's one of the things that not reacting and the gray rock method teach us to do. They take the power over your emotions and reactions away from the narcissist or the abuser and put that power back into your own hands where it belongs. There are a few episodes of this show about gray rock and not reacting that can help you understand how those work and how to implement them into your daily life, so check those out if you're interested. Most of them are on a playlist called Dealing with Narcissists that you can find on the channel page for this show. Reacting to things is a choice. You really can choose not to let something bother you. I know that sounds trite, but it is 100% true. Whether the guilt you're feeling is genuine or whether it's the result of conditioning, it's important to remember that there's nothing wrong with caring about yourself, and there's nothing selfish about refusing to put up with abuse. Establishing boundaries does not mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't care about other people. It means you care about yourself too. These things only become selfish when expectations are unreasonable or when the definition of abuse must be stretched to fit the situation. This is what we see with narcissists. To a narcissist, not being permitted to have their way is abusive. That is, of course, ridiculous. No one always gets what they want, nor should they, and it's an unreasonable expectation. To a narcissist, you are abusive if you do not put their needs above your own. This is, again, unreasonable. When things become unreasonable and unfair, that's when they become abusive. Expectations for yourself and for other people should be fair, reasonable, and balanced. They should not result in you or anyone else being hurt or being put in situations that are unfair. One really good way you can decide whether your own boundaries are selfish or unreasonable is to ask yourself what you would think if a friend was describing the same situation to you. Would you think your friend was being selfish or unreasonable? If you would, then maybe you are being unreasonable. If you wouldn't, then maybe you should lighten up on yourself a little bit. This technique can help you create some emotional distance between yourself and the situation so that you can see it a little more clearly. For example, if a friend told you that someone asked her to do something for them but she was feeling ill and wanted to tell them she couldn't do it, would you really accuse her of being selfish for that? No. So don't think that of yourself. If a friend told you that his girlfriend had destroyed his property multiple times and he didn't want to see her anymore, would you really insist that he was being unreasonable and should give her another chance? Of course not. So cut yourself some slack. You're a person too. You're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to have a bad day, you're allowed to need some time, and you're allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to say no. You're allowed to say, I don't like that. You're allowed to say, I don't want to do that. You're allowed to demand respect and leave the situation if you don't get it. There's no buts. That's it. The only reason to feel bad about not accepting abuse is because you have been conditioned to think that way. Sometimes just facing that conditioning for what it is can strip it of its power. So much of what we as humans do is conditioning and learned behavior and reflex. When we learn to examine things and live more intentionally, a lot of that falls by the wayside and we can see it for what it really is. Outdated programming that we don't need anymore. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by Little Shaman Healing. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful narcissist and psychopath-free day.